As the investigation continues, the shooter is believed to be in custody. Joining us now on the phone is Frank DeRisso. He is the president of the United Food and Commercial Workers Union. He witnessed today's mass shooting. Frank, thank you for being here. Obviously, this is a terrible tragedy. Please tell us where you were and what you saw.
Well, I'm sorry, I don't know who's getting the information. I didn't witness it. I'm on the other end of the state because I have representatives there, and I've been in touch with everybody, with a number of them as this tragedy has gone on. But, you know, what we were told was that exactly what you know, we know nothing other than the fact what they're reporting. We're trying to find out how many, if any, of the fatalities were our union members or employees. Or, you know, only thing we can say at this point in time is our hearts go out to the families and to everybody involved with this, because these tragedies shouldn't be occurring like this. It's a sad, sad thing, and there's no reason for people who are working or shopping should have to experience something like this.
You're absolutely right. It is horrific. My apologies for the incorrect info.
Was going, but again, we have no information on who the fatalities were, and again, our hearts go out. These things like this shouldn't be happening. It's just a sad state.
It is tragic. Frank DeRisso, thank you.
Thank you. If I get any other information, if you want, I can relay it to you or whatever.
Please do.
Okay.
We are waiting for a police news conference to begin any moment. We will bring that to you as soon as it begins. Right now, we're going to check back in with coverage from our Buffalo affiliate, WIVB.
In terms of the next steps going forward and the investigation as it unfolds, looking at social media, is that already underway?
Undoubtedly, that's already underway. Like I said, that's where all of the resources of the police department will be engaged. So you have patrol officers that will hold that scene. I expect that scene will be held for probably a couple days, if not longer, given the severity of this crime. You have detectives that specifically do social media. They're detectives assigned to the background investigation. So yes, the entire homicide squad, members of other squads within the detective basically dividing up the work and getting the job done.
All right, former Buffalo Police Captain Jeff Rinaldo, thank you so much for your time. I'm sure we will be checking back and hearing from once again.
Absolutely.
The circumstances and his experience.
We want to go back to the scene now. Tara Lynch has been there for quite some time, and we are just receiving very disturbing news that the gunman had a racial slur written on his weapon. And of course, this goes back to motive here and why this tops, why in this particular area would he be carrying out this shooting. So there will be more coming on that, and we are waiting right now for a news conference with the police department. As you can imagine, this is such a wide-ranging investigation they have going on right now. There's so many things happen. We were supposed to hear from them at 5:15. They keep pushing back the start of the news conference. We absolutely are interested in what information they can give us that we were not able to gather at the scene there. And if Jeff Rinaldo is still with us, Jeff, in a case like this, police are usually very closed-mouthed about the information from the scene. Where's the dividing line there? How much information can you give out and let the public know?
Well, again, in my career of being the person that handled this stuff, you want accurate information. You don't want to speculate. You don't want to cause panic. You want to be able to give out accurate information. So generally, you will see them confirm how many victims have died as a result of this tragedy, how many other victims are wounded, the status of those victims. You will see the police department reiterate that they have somebody in custody. If there's information that they need from the public, if there's assistance that they need, they will request that generally at the initial press conference. But you will also see them not speculate about motive, intent, or really talk about how this was carried out, the types of weapons, things of that nature. It's just way too soon in the investigation to start talking about those types of details.
As Jackie had mentioned, there is now news that there was a racial slur that was on the shooter's weapon. Can you talk more about the likelihood of a hate crime here?
If that isn't true, accurate, then you would definitely see both local as well as probably federal prosecutors ensure that this gets charged accordingly, and the severity of the charges is upped based on the as a race crime.
All right, Jeff, stand by as you have been. You've been very helpful and very informative for us. We want to head back to the scene now. Tara Lynch has been there, as we said, almost from the beginning when this word broke about what happened there. And she has more information for us right now. Tara?
Yes, Jackie, we have been here all afternoon, and we are joined right now by Congressman Tom Suozzi and Diana Reyna. They are running for governor and lieutenant governor here in New York. They happen to be in the Buffalo area today, but you're here now on Jefferson Avenue, Mr. Congressman. So please tell me a little bit about what you've heard and what is going on here today.
I think people are just devastated. It's hard to imagine that people have to be subjected to this type of violence, that this type of racism exists. I've been told, I don't know if it's true or not, that the shooter had racial epithets on his guns. It's just devastating. And this has got to, crime and stamping out hate has got to be a priority here in our state and throughout our country. And we just want to show support for the community and for the families that are here.
And I know that both of you are from the New York City area, but when you hear that something like this is happening in the second largest city in the state that you are running to represent, what does that mean for you? When you hear those things, what are you thinking about?
This is a great loss, and there are no words that can describe the situation right now. This is exactly what divides country, and this is the time when we have to stand by one another and be strength and pillars of strength for others who are experiencing what is crime at the closest level. I can never have imagined that we were visiting Buffalo today and that this would have happened. Our hearts go out to the families, to the victims, to the community, to law enforcement. This is exactly what we have to start fixing together. This kind of hate is what is destroying America.
And both of you are running for the state's highest and second highest office here. We're seeing crime uptick in your area in New York City. We're seeing it here in Buffalo. We're seeing it in Elmira, New York, a smaller city.
State.
So what do we do about that?
You know, since day one, we have said that crime has got to be the #1 priority of what the state is dealing with right now. And when you add the fact that this was a violent gun crime and that seems like it was a racially motivated crime, this can't be an afterthought. This has got to be a priority, the #1 priority that we're focusing on. We've tried to make it a priority, and we hope that the people in office now hear our voices and hear the community's voices and say this has got to be the #1 priority, because this is real life. Families are suffering right this minute. They're devastated right this minute because their loved ones' lives have been taken away from them. And we cannot treat this as an afterthought.
When you say we can't treat it like an afterthought, it sounds like you want to take a proactive approach. How do we be proactive in terms of the gun crime here in New York State?
We have to get the guns off the street. We have to support the law enforcement's efforts to get guns. We have to make sure that
came from Amherst.
They probably came from South Carolina too.
Well, thank you so much, Congressman Diana Reyna. Thank you so much for joining us here. We're going to send it back to you in studio.
You can hear tensions there at the scene. This is just so many emotions flooding out there. We have Mike Hughes on the line, and Mike Hughes is with Kaleida Hospitals. Mike, are you there?
Yep. Good evening, guys.
Hello. And can you tell us, do you have any of the victims from this tragedy at the Kaleida Hospitals?
We don't. Buffalo General Medical Center and Children's Hospital are about 1.5 miles from the shooting scene. So obviously when we first heard the news, we activated our teams to make sure we were prepared. Unfortunately, there were only 2 transports. Both went to ECMC. So, at this point, we don't have any transports.
Wait a minute, Mike. This is new information. When you say 2 transports, we have been hearing multiple people wounded. Are you saying only 2 people were wounded and taken from that scene?
That's the reports we have at this point. Obviously, this stuff is still kind of unfolding, but at this point, we have been told that 2 have gone to ECMC by ambulance. Now, there may have been others that have gone by car. I'm just talking about officially by ambulance. Nobody has walked into Buffalo General or Children's, nor have they transported by ambulance to Buffalo General or Children's. So, again, some have gone by ambulance, but some others may have gone by car.
Oh, that is really shocking news and disturbing news. If only 2 wounded people were taken from the scene still alive there.
Mike, could you talk about the preparations that Kaleida Health Hospitals that they are taking in terms of perhaps maybe support for other medical facilities right now?
Yeah, the medical campus is only 1.5 miles away from the shooting scene, and there's a couple of the 33.
Okay, did we lose Mike? Did we lose you? All right, well, what we found out there is that no other victims at the Kaleida Hospitals here. 2 wounded and taken to ECMC. Overall, now I'm being told 13 people shot, 10 of them are dead. This is just such a dark day. We are hearing that they are just about ready to start this news conference where we're going to get a lot more information than what we've been able to piece together here. Hospitals on alert, police on alert, news media on alert, the neighborhood.
We are taking it back from WIVB, our Buffalo affiliate, and taking you now to Buffalo, New York, where police officials are discussing a mass shooting that happened in a supermarket. CBS News has confirmed at least 10 people are dead, more are injured. Let's listen.
Alan, let me know when we're good.
Go ahead.
Mayor Brown.
What started out as a beautiful day in the city of Buffalo has turned into a terrible day and one of tremendous heartbreak for every member of our community. We have suffered a mass shooting with multiple casualties and several people injured. This is the worst nightmare that any community can face, and we are hurting and we are seething right now as a community. The depth of pain that families are feeling and that all of us are feeling right now cannot even be explained. Some of us had the opportunity to provide comfort to some of the families, but needless to say, there is no comfort at this time. We are pleased that a shooter is in custody. The person responsible for the tragic events of today is in custody. You will get more details in a moment. I want to thank all of the law enforcement agencies at the federal, state, county, and city level, all of the agencies that have responded. Buffalo is known as the city of good neighbors nationally and internationally. This is a community where people love each other. The shooter was not from this community. In fact, the shooter traveled hours from outside this community to perpetrate this crime on the people of Buffalo. A day when people were enjoying the sunshine, enjoying family, enjoying friends, all manner of happy activities. People in a supermarket shopping and bullets raining down on them. People's lives being snuffed out in an instant for no reason. I have to say that this particular top supermarket is near and dear to my heart. It's one that I worked years ago to help bring to this community. It's one that I patronize from time to time. My family patronizes from time to time. And some of the victims of this shooter's attack are people that all of us standing up here know. So this is a day of great pain for our community. I want to just recognize some of those that are with us today before I turn things over to our police commissioner, Joseph Gramaglia, to give you more detail. I want to recognize County Executive Mark Poloncarz, Erie County Executive, Congressman Brian Higgins, Council President, Buffalo City Council President Darius Pridgeon, Erie County Legislature Chairwoman April Baskin, Erie County Legislator Howard Johnson. I want to recognize Governor Kathy Hochul and thank her for her calls. Governor's staff is with us now, and the governor is flying back into town and will be here sometime after 7 o'clock. I want to recognize Attorney General Letitia James, who has also called, and we have also received calls from the White House. Again, this is a day of great sadness for all of us in the city of Buffalo. To provide you with more detail, I want to turn things over to Buffalo Police Commissioner Joseph Gramaglia.
Thank you, Mayor. At approximately 2:30 today, an individual who the mayor stated is not from this area and is from hours away drove to Buffalo, went to 1275 Jefferson Avenue to the Tops Market. He exited his vehicle. He was very heavily armed. He had tactical gear. He had a tactical helmet on. He had a camera that he was live streaming what he was doing. The individual exited his car and engaged 4 individuals. He shot 4 people in the parking lot. 3 of those were deceased. 1 individual at this time is surviving the injury. The individual went inside. As I said, he was an 18-year-old white male, walked into the store and began engaging customers inside the store. One of the individuals inside the store is a security guard, a beloved security guard, who is a retired Buffalo police officer, a hero in our eyes, engaged the suspect, fired multiple shots, struck the suspect, but because he had heavily armored plating on, that bullet had no round. The suspect engaged our retired officer, and he was ultimately shot and deceased at the scene. He continued to work his way through the store. Ultimately, he worked his way back towards the front of the store. Buffalo police immediately respond, engage the suspect in the vestibule of the store, and at that point, the suspect put the gun to his own neck. Buffalo police personnel, 2 patrol officers, talked the suspect into dropping the gun. He dropped the gun, took off some of his tactical gear, surrendered at that point, and he was led outside, put in a police car, and transported to Buffalo Police Headquarters. So as we said, a total of 13 people were shot today, 10 deceased at the scene, and 3 sustained non-life-threatening injuries. It appears to be non-life-threatening injuries at that point. 4 in total were store employees. One of those was the security guard who has worked at that location for a very long time. Many officers are on scene here, knew him quite well. And the rest of the victims are customers of the store. As the mayor said, this tragic incident by someone who is not a part of our community, does not live here. We'll let some of the other agencies get into the information that has been posted online, and I will turn this over at this point first to our Erie County Sheriff, John Garcia. I would like to thank all of the agencies. We have a very, very close working relationship with every level of government, every level of law enforcement, and everybody was immediately calling and responding. We had a command post set up, and everybody is asking what we can do and how can we pitch in. The individuals from several hours away, the New York State Police and the FBI are investigating that part of the crime as well. So I will turn this over at this point to Erie County Sheriff John Garcia. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gramaglia. As your sheriff and on behalf of the men and women of the Erie County Sheriff's Office, our condolences to the victims and their families. From a law enforcement standpoint, the Erie County Sheriff's Office responded, boots on the ground, deputies, investigators, our helicopter in the air, our SWAT team on standby, and as Commissioner Gramaglia said, we are working together every single day to keep the community safe. This was pure evil. It was straight up racially motivated hate crime from somebody outside of our community, outside of the city of good neighbors, as the mayor said, coming into our community and trying to inflict that evil upon us. I urge everyone to stay calm, and we are there to protect the citizens of Erie County and Buffalo, and we'll be out there along with the City of Buffalo Police Department patrolling. And again, my condolences to the family, and this person was pure evil. So, thank you.
I'm Stephen Belongia. I'm the Special Agent in charge of the FBI's Buffalo Field Office. We stand here today confronted with feelings of anger, shock, confusion, fear, and compassion. We feel motivated to help and relieve the anguish of those who were killed and injured today and their families and friends. These victims did not deserve this. They were doing what we do every day, going to the grocery store or simply doing our jobs. The FBI is working this case jointly with our partners, with the Buffalo PD and our other federal, state, and local partners. We are investigating this incident as both a hate crime and a case of racially motivated violent extremism. Hate crimes fall within the FBI's Criminal Investigative Division, and racially motivated violent extremism cases fall within the FBI's Counterterrorism Division within our Domestic Terrorism section. The FBI is providing all necessary resources, both locally and nationally, to investigate this matter. We will not stop until every lead is investigated, every piece of evidence is analyzed, and until we understand how and why this horrible tragedy and crime occurred. Our thoughts and our prayers are with the family and the victims who died today.
I'm Trini Ross. I'm the United States Attorney for the Western District of New York. I want to start by saying my thoughts and heartfelt prayers go to the family, the victims, and the community that had to suffer this great and unnecessary tragedy today. We're working with our state, federal, and local law enforcement partners, as you've already heard from, to ensure that justice is brought to this community, to those victims, to their families. The United States Attorney's Office will be investigating this case along with our law enforcement partners as a hate crime and domestic violent extremism. I'm in touch with the highest levels of the Department of Justice. Resources will be put behind this investigation. Whatever we need, we will not stop until justice is brought to this community, those families, and the victims of this horrific crime. I can assure you, as the United States Attorney, I will bring whatever resources we need to this community to make sure that justice is done. This should never happen to anyone in any community. It surely shouldn't happen on a beautiful Saturday when people are just shopping and going through normal life events. We will ensure that the perpetrator of this victim is given justice, and justice will be done for this community.
I'm going last. No, I'm going. I'm not going. Not going? All right. Let me first start out by saying thank you. Thank you to all my partners in law enforcement here, from the federal, state, local level. The amount of work that's been done so far has been extraordinary. The amount of information that's been gathered so far has been outstanding. And for everyone involved here, from Trini to BPD to the state police to the sheriff, I cannot thank enough. We here in Erie County, though, are not waiting. I have already called a judge, Judge Hanna, to come downtown immediately and arraign this individual. So within the next hour, this individual will be arraigned on a charge of murder in the first degree. I am not even going to mention his name right now, one, because the arraignment hasn't occurred, but more importantly, I don't want to give him any celebrityism at all right now. I don't want to give him anything right now that puts attention on him and the alleged, and again I say alleged, despicable acts that were committed today in our great city. So I'm not going to give you his name right now. I'll give it to you after I issue a press release after he's been arraigned. But Judge Hanna is downtown right now. BPD and my office are drafting the charges right now, and he will be arraigned tonight. And that charge of murder in the first degree carries with it a life without parole sentence. Now, there are two aspects of the murder in the first degree charge that potentially could be charged here. The one, obviously, is crystal clear right now. There is a certain subdivision of the murder in the first degree that accounts for multiple individuals getting shot and killed, which is what we have here. As the commissioner said, we have 10 individuals who have unfortunately lost their life, 3 that have been shot but are going to survive, hopefully. There is also a second subsection of the murder in the first degree that has a racial component to it. Obviously, we will investigate that further. I want to make sure right now, though, when I arraign him tonight, my clock is ticking as far as my felony hearing date, which will be 5 days from now. So I want to make sure that I have the best charge right now to hold him in custody and to get this matter moving forward before I add any other charges on. But I can, and if those charges are applicable, which I think they may be, they will be added on. They're not going to increase the punishment at all from a state standpoint. From a state standpoint, it is life without parole, and that's as high as we can go. So I also want to thank my district attorneys across the country who have been texting me and calling me for the past 2 hours. I thank you for your thoughts. I thank you for your prayers. But more importantly, I want everyone to know that my thoughts and prayers are with the family members who have lost loved ones today in the city of Buffalo.
We'll next hear from County Executive Mark Poloncarz and then Congressman Brian Higgins.
And then I'll take any questions at the end.
As has been said by all the others, today is one of the saddest days in the city of Buffalo and Erie County's history. All of the county's resources have been made available as necessary to assist in this unfortunate, horrific act. As the mayor noted, we are the city of good neighbors, and we, of course, are not defined by this act, but how we will come together to support the families of those who have lost. And on behalf of the people of Erie County, I want to offer my deepest condolences to those who have lost a loved one today. Erie County mental health counselors, as well as our partners from the mental health community, are already on site to assist those who may have lost a loved one or those who were a witness to this horrific crime. And as we know, we will offer all resources possible from all parts of county government, whether of course it's the sheriff's office, the district attorney's offices, or the other departments, that to ensure that not only do this individual be prosecuted for this horrible crime and brought to the full extent of justice, but that we also can heal as a community from this traumatic experience.
Well, thank you very much. And let me just say to all of my colleagues in government, our law enforcement community, the eyes of the nation are on Buffalo. And those eyes are full of tears and they're full of sympathy for the violence and the tragedy that's been exacted on good, innocent people who went to work this morning, said goodbye to their loved ones, expecting fully to return home tonight. 10 people are not going to return home. Their loss, their death, is a loss and a death that's exacted on this community. Our sympathy goes to the families, our thoughts go to the families and to the victims. And I couldn't be more proud of my mayor, my county executive, my district attorney, the U.S. attorney, and all of the elected officials that are here today in the law enforcement community who have coordinated this effort in a highly effective way. So this is something that hopefully we will learn from, something that will serve as a basis from which enacting policy at the federal level to get guns out of the hands of those people who should not have guns in their hands. And we hope that time will heal. And we are a good community. We are a giving community. We love our people. We love our diversity. And again, these people were people that for the past 24 months were working in service of others, and people who we called our heroes. And our heroes have been taken down today without justification.
So as we conclude, before we open up for questions, again, I want to express that our deepest and most heartfelt condolences are with the families of those who lost their lives today tragically and unnecessarily. If you would bear with us, we will open up for questions, and then we will conclude in prayer with Father Seil, the fire department chaplain, and our council president, Darius Bridget.
May, where is the shooter
Questions?
from? Where is the shooter from? You said he drove from.
We're not going to say right now. The state police and the FBI and the ATF are investigating his residence, so we do not want to state right now where he's from, but he is from a county here in New York State that is hours away.
Can you give us more information?
Wait, Hannah.
Can you give us more information on why you're calling this a hate crime at this point?
There are certain pieces of evidence that we have ascertained in the course of this investigation that indicate some racial animosity. I'm not going to specifically talk about or elaborate on what exactly they are right now, but we have evidence in custody right now that shows that there is some racial component to these alleged actions.
Susan Rose.
What was the weapon, John?
It was an assault weapon.
Was he known to law enforcement?
No, and at this time does not appear.
Can you confirm if there was some sort of manifesto that was published?
I'm not going to confirm that.
Down here.
What? Your question?
Will there be an open court for the arraignment?
Well, I mean, probably not, because it's going to happen like right now in closed city court. So, no. The answer to the question is no.
There's somebody in the back over there.
Could he face federal charges or the death penalty?
All options are on the table as we go forward with the investigation. We will put every tool in our toolbox to make sure justice is done for the individuals of this horrific crime in our community.
Associated Press.
Yep.
Is part of the evidence, can you talk about the victims? Were the victims all black and the shooter white?
Yes.
Can you?
Let the commissioner respond to that.
So out of the 13 victims, 11 are African American, 2 are white. So there were 4 store employees.
Were those 4 store employees fatally shot?
We have the security guard, who was the retired Buffalo police officer, was fatally shot. 3 other store employees were non-fatal wounds.
Do you have the ages or an age range?
Not right now.
Was the suspect live streaming the shooting?
Yes.
Do you have, where was that live stream?
It was on a social media platform.
John, when was the last time first-degree murder was brought forward to a suspect in Erie County?
I believe it's only been done once in my tenure.
Kelly?
Do you think he was working alone, or could there be other dudes out there like him?
At this point, it appears that he was alone.
Tim?
Social media posts out there, and I can't comment on the
Yeah.
veracity of them. Is there any reason law enforcement should have known who this individual is? Were there concerning posts that were brought to the attention of law enforcement anywhere?
No. At this time, we don't know that.
All right, anyone else?
I want to ask, we see this everywhere else. We never think that it's going to happen here. Congressman Higgins kind of mentioned this, but these people are our neighbors. We see them at the grocery store shopping every day. I mean, that has to be going through each and every single one of your minds right now and when you heard about this.
Of course, and that's why we want to bring justice here. We want to bring justice to every individual who lost their life, to every family member who lost an individual today, to every individual who was a victim of this crime. Not only to the family members, but to the victims themselves. I mean, I learned a long time ago when I was trying homicide cases back in the DA's office 20 years ago that we, in the homicide field, when we're doing a homicide investigation, we speak for the dead. And when we speak for those who have lost their life, we are going to bring them justice, their families justice, and this community justice.
Can you give us more?
Let me respond to that, too. Many of us know this supermarket, this top supermarket on Jefferson Avenue very well. Many of us have been in and out of this supermarket. Our family members have been in and out of this supermarket. Some of us, many of us, know some of those who are victims of this horrific crime. So this is painful. This does hurt. It always hurts. And as the U.S. Attorney, Trini Ross, said, this should not happen in this community and any community anywhere in our country.
Mayor Brown, do you think this will exacerbate racial tensions in this community, even though the shooter wasn't from there?
As we've all said, this is the city of good neighbors. We are a loving community. We are prayerful that this will not exacerbate racial tensions. We can't let an evil person divide this community and an evil person divide our country.
Can I address that, though? What I'm hopeful for is that this incident will bring us together, because as stated, this could have been any one of us or any one of our loved ones. We shop on Saturday, we go to supermarkets, we take care of our families, we go to work. And if this should bring us together and not tear us apart, and that's what I'm hoping as we go through the process of justice in this case, that we all band together to let the world know, because I'm getting texts from friends in other countries about this incident today. And we need to let the world know who Buffalo is, who the people in Buffalo are, and what we're going to do for our community and other communities in this great nation to make sure this type of crime is stopped.
What are they
One more.
Is this the
Hannah, go ahead, one more.
mass casualty event in the city?
I'm sorry?
Is this the
Commissioner.
largest mass casualty event in Buffalo?
As long as I can remember, yes.
Anyone else?
What are the age ranges of the people that have passed?
We're not going to get into that right now.
Can you just tell us a little bit more about the timeline of how he was taken into custody? How long between the time this attack started and the time that it ended was he taken into custody, and did it take police to get there?
I don't have the exact answer on the time. We'll look into that, but it was a very fast response by our patrol officers who immediately went inside the supermarket, did not hesitate, went right inside.
Was the shooter speaking when he was live streaming?
We can't comment on that.
All right. We're going to conclude with prayer. Father
Paul Sile, and then Council President and Bishop Darius Bridges.
So everyone wants to join together here in prayer?
At a time like this, we go to our deeper spiritual selves, whether we believe in God, whether we don't, whether we're Christian or Jewish or Islamic or any other faith or not faith. There is something that unites us all together as human beings, As this terrible incident has torn at the heart of this community, we pray to you, loving God, creator of us all, to help us be ever more unified in the things that hold us together in common. Hear the prayers we offer for all of the people who have, and all of their loved ones, those who have died, those who are injured, those who are their family members awaiting word about them, for the store employees, for the firefighters, the police officers, the ambulance, the first responders. So deeply this touches our faith and our community and our beloved city of good neighbors that we know that we can only turn to you, O loving God, and to one another. Help us to have firm hope that we will see our loved ones again. Help us to come to that great reunion in the heavenly kingdom. Keep us safe. Keep your children safe. And help us always to work towards unity and never division. Jesus Christ says in the gospel that is read at Catholic services this weekend, if you are my disciples, you will keep my command. My command is that you love one another as I have loved you. Love one another. May we all of us live those words of loving one another. Bishop Darius.
Father, we come now for families of so many whose family members left the house to pick up bread, to buy eggs and butter, to just go to work. We pray for those families, that they may be comforted by you, even when evil has struck our city. We pray for every person in this community who witnessed it, every child who may have seen it, every mother who will not see their child tonight. Pray for guidance, pray for peace, pray for unity. But most of all, God, we pray that justice be done. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Would anticipate.
We have been listening to officials in Buffalo, New York, discuss a mass shooting at Tops Supermarket. We learned several new details from this press conference. At least 10 people were killed, both inside the store and in the parking lot. Among them, a retired police officer who was working as a security guard. The 18-year-old male suspect is in police custody, and it is being investigated as a hate crime. Mayor Byron Brown said that the shooter traveled several hours from outside of the Buffalo community to perpetrate this attack. The mayor also said that there is, quote, no comfort at this time. I want to bring back in CBS News security and law enforcement analyst James Galliano, who joins us via phone. James, what is the biggest questions that still remain unanswered to you following that press conference?
Yeah, I just like you, I watched the complete press conference, and just some sobering details came out, a lot of things that we can unpack. And I don't normally share this on air at CBS, but I am an upstate New York mayor, an elected mayor, and it's not part of my gig at CBS. I don't normally talk about it, but listening to the mayor of Buffalo, the pain, talking about how much this was personal to the community, it really, really gripped me, and understanding what he's going through as he has to attempt to unite the community, obviously allow law enforcement the bandwidth to get to the bottom of this. And I know we're not reporting yet completely on all the details of this manifesto, but through channels I've seen parts of what we believe to be that manifesto, and it is a hateful screed. So he's got his hands full. Now, shifting gears and moving back to your question, which was the law enforcement piece of this. Yes, law enforcement has a heavy burden going forward. Now, first and foremost, the number one thing is, thankfully, it does not appear to be part of a broader conspiracy. Now, if anyone provided this 18-year-old miscreant, and that's what this individual is, if anyone provided him any type of material support, inspiration, communicated with him, knew about this prior to this heinous act taking place, that is going to be law enforcement's major focus. Everything else now, we can put it on pause, we can tap the brakes, we can take a deep breath, make sure that we've got the evidence that we need, whether it's at the crime scene itself, at the grocery store, or whether or not it's social media, digital exhaust. That's what law enforcement is going to be focused on right now.
Yeah, we definitely heard that pain resonating with the people in the audience there. Jimmy, were you surprised when law enforcement said that the suspect did not appear to be on the radar of law enforcement officials before now?
No, this is the toughest piece of this. And here's what our viewers are going to be asking. Why did we not know about this individual beforehand? And was he on the FBI's radar? Was he on law enforcement radar? And here's the problem. You know, we live in a country where we cherish our civil liberties. We want to be able to have the First Amendment protections. We obviously understand that sometimes people say things in the heat of the moment. Sometimes they say things that are hyperbolic or are satire-laden. Those are all okay. But when does it move into the realm where you should be on the radar of law enforcement, and when should law enforcement interdict you? And that's the problem. People can say hateful things. People can say racist things. And unfortunately, there's no law against that, so we can't arrest people for that. And we certainly can't put an FBI agent and a cop, you know, sitting on the street corner wherever this person lives. Now, in 1990, the U.S. Congress passed laws that made hate crimes a crime. And what does that mean? Well, a hate crime is something where somebody is doing something targeting a particular race, religion, disability, sexual orientation, ethnicity, a whole host of things. And why is that different? Because people often ask me, why do we treat those crimes differently than we just do a straight murder or a straight assault? Because of the paralyzing effect it has on the community. When people in the community know that they are being targeted because of who they are, it's not random, but because of who they are, that has a sobering effect on things, and that's why we investigate these things differently. Now, the DA spoke, and he said this person is presumably going to be charged at the state level with first-degree murder. I'm certain the feds are going to come in. They're probably going to slap a number of hate crime violations, federal violations, maybe even, and I don't want to say I've heard this, but maybe even a terrorism charge here. Because, again, the definition of terrorism is violence or intimidation, you know, in pursuit of political or some type of social goals. And this person obviously had some issues going on, but obviously was looking to spread fear. And to me, from my perspective, this looks like a hate crime.
Yeah, we heard the Erie District Attorney, John Flynn, also say that they would not release the name of the suspect at this time because they, quote, don't want to give him celebrity. It seems that he was, in fact, motivated by this racial animus, by hate. Talk to us, Jimmy, about this.
So we do know from the press conference that this individual attempted to live stream what they were doing. And this is a macabre, completely bizarre thing that sometimes people that are predisposed to violence or trying to make a splash and want to avail themselves of all the tools that we have at our avail in the 21st century, the ability to stream things live on Facebook or TikTok or Instagram or things like that. So yes, that will be used as obviously part of the case against this individual. The sad part about this is obviously there are, you know, a number of souls who were taken from us here. I think there were 13 total that were injured, wounded, I think 10 deceased. But yes, law enforcement will use that. This will become part of the case against this individual who apparently gave himself up. I mean, he's a coward. Whether he took his life or whether he committed suicide by cop or whether he surrendered, this person was a total coward, and I trust that in Buffalo they're going to bring the full force of the law against him and let the chips fall where they may, but I think this individual is going to go to jail for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, we heard that they said nothing, including the death penalty, is being taken off of the table at this time. James Galliano, thank you.
You're welcome. Take care.
We want to now bring in Doug Coons. He is a former FBI special agent and the founder and CEO of Veracity. Doug, thank you for being here. Now that the suspect is in custody and expected to be arraigned on Saturday, what are the next steps in this investigation?
There's so much to do right now. There's a lot of witnesses to interview. There's crime scene to process. There's social media to exploit, to figure out who this person is, where all this hate came from. I was listening to Mr. Gagliano just before, and I agree with everything he said. This is just a horrible tragedy, and there's a lot of work to do moving forward.
Yeah, the Erie County DA says that the suspect will be arraigned tonight. Tell us, what does the arraignment process entail?
In the state system, I'm not as familiar with, but it's when a person will be brought before a judge to be read the charges, at least the initial charges, and that can change later. But there won't be bail set on something like this. But if there were to be bail, that's when that would be decided, and it just kind of gets the whole process started for court purposes.
And Doug, law enforcement officials said that the suspect traveled hours to get to this particular market. How will that affect this investigation? And is there anything that tells you about the suspect?
That's a good question. Traveling hours to the specific place must have had some reason to target it. So what is that reason? It's going to be figuring out more about the why now than the what. It's a little unusual, at least in my recent experience, that they've actually got a suspect in custody. We had an unfortunate similar event here not even a year ago at the FedEx facility in Indianapolis. And that person ended his own life. But, and just ask if he's talking. He may not be talking. I don't know that.
Doug, tell us about the scene. As you say, there have many unanswered questions that they're going to be processing. What all goes into the investigation? And tell us also, we understand that the Buffalo PD are taking the lead on the investigation, but federal agencies are supporting it. How are they going to be working in tandem?
Sure. On something like this, everybody comes together. Jurisdictional issues are, out the window. Kind of, it's like, how can we help? It's not, this is ours. It's like, what can we do for you? And, the Bureau will likely offer whatever it can do as far as like analytical resources, identifying this person's family, friends, neighbors, classmates, teachers. That's who they're going to be talking to in the next 24, 48 hours. They really want to figure out what makes this guy tick, why he might have done it. Is he part of a group that have similar ideology? There's a lot of questions to be answered.
The suspect reportedly live streamed the incident. How could this change the investigation and even potentially the charges that he faces?
Well, like Mr. Gagliano said, clearly attention seeking. He wanted people to see this. He wanted people to know about it. I like that they're not giving him that courtesy of giving him the attention he deserves. His name's not out there. I'm sure it'll get out, eventually. But it changes things in the motivation, like his hatred and his ideology. It's more of the what and the why the why as opposed to the what.
Doug, James and I were talking earlier about what's going on, trying to understand potentially the mentality. We have learned that he is an 18-year-old male, not from the community. We've learned that he was shouting racial epithets as he was shooting people there. The vast majority of the victims were African American. He was white, and then he surrendered himself to law enforcement officials. When you're putting all that together in a profile of a perpetrator, does this sound all too common for you?
This one doesn't sound common to me, and I wonder what is his connection to this community or to this particular store. It seems to me like it must have been picked out. It wasn't just driving around and thought, oh, I'll stop here and do it. Those are the questions I would want to answer. Hopefully he's talking. Hopefully he gives a good interview to the investigators. If not, hopefully somebody from his family or his neighborhood or his school will be able to provide some of these answers. 18 years old to be filled with that kind of hate to do something so egregious as this is just mind-blowing.
And Doug, one last question for you. We don't know where he came from yet. The law enforcement officials are still keeping that close to their vest as they're continuing their investigation. But he is 18. What do we know about where he might have procured a weapon, and what are the limitations on an 18-year-old?
Well, he's an adult, and he can purchase a gun just like any other adult can, and ammunition. And it's my understanding that it was a rifle. No waiting permit or waiting times on those. So could have come from pretty much anywhere. You can get them from gun shows. You can buy them person to person. There are various laws in the different states about how guns can be purchased. It sounds like there were a high number of rounds fired. There would probably be involved magazine changes or a high capacity magazine or both. Again, these are all questions that I'm just speculating about right now that the investigators are trying to answer right now. Where did it come from? Were there more? I'd be really cautious when approaching wherever this person lived to make sure there are no explosive devices. He seemed to know he was going to get caught if he surrendered himself. So hopefully, his apartment or wherever he was living is not rigged with something when investigators go to look at it.
Doug Coons, we are all searching for understanding, even as the information is still very limited. Appreciate you joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We're now going to head back to our coverage from our Buffalo affiliate, WIVB.
As I said, there is a jurisdiction on both a state and local level as well as a federal level. So you don't want to just pass on the opportunity because there can be issues that might come up that might hamper one particular investigation. I don't foresee that, but again, it's a federal law. So as a federal law enforcement agency, you want to do your job. You want to make sure you discharge your responsibility and investigate it to the fullest. Same thing locally. At the end of the day, now from a local perspective, there is no capital punishment in New York State. So this person could get a life sentence. On a federal level, there's potential for a death penalty sentence, and that's something that the U.S. Attorney's Office and the District Attorney will get together. They'll discuss, and they'll make some decisions on what's the best way to proceed at the end of the day. But again, that's down the road a bit. But right now, everyone's doing everything they can to gather as much intelligence, as much information they can, so we make sure we know every possible thing that we can find out about this individual, how he did it, the plans that were made, did he have any help, all of that.
And Bernie, we understand that he was live streaming this terrible event on social media. What is the FBI's role in investigating that part of this?
Well, certainly live stream, the fact that he live streamed it goes towards intent. That this is something that he intended to do, and he, given the preparation that would have to go into it, clearly that speaks to his thinking at the time and what he wanted to happen. In terms of social media, if I were heading the FBI, I'd want to make sure that I get access to all of his social media accounts so that we can see what he talked about, who he talked about it with. Was there any assistance on the part of anyone, not necessarily someone who did the act or planned the act with him, but does anyone help him to help in furtherance of his illegal activity, help him get to the point where he did this? So we'll want to know as much as we can from looking at all of his social media accounts.
All right, still a lot to piece together here. Former director of the Buffalo FBI, Bernie Tober, thank you for your time. Stay with us, stay on the line. We will be coming back to you momentarily, but for now, we do want to get to News 4's Tara Lynch. She is live outside the Tops Market where this mass shooting occurred, and she is live with an official from the Office of the Services for Mental Health.
Yes, Jeff, we are here with Mark O'Brien from the Department of Mental Health. So tell us, first, your reaction. You were telling me, who would have thought?
Yeah, I'm from Buffalo, and you never would have thought that this would have come to our town. This is just something you read about, and you hope and pray that we never see this, and this is probably a lot of people's worst nightmare come true.
When you talk about that worst nightmare from the Department of Mental Health, we're seeing all of these images on social media. We're understanding that the suspect was live streaming this attack on social media as well. When you hear those things, what can residents do? Because this is a lot to take in.
Well, this is a lot to take in, and this is hitting home for people. And we're standing here in the neighborhood, and we've had people. There's neighbors here. There's friends. There's family members. There's people waiting to find out, is their loved one alive? Is there not alive? Is there hopeful news? Is there bad news? And they don't know yet. So we're still in the waiting period. We do have a response team down here comprised of crisis response counselors from multiple agencies, and I want to thank our partner agencies for being down here, from Endeavor, Spectrum, Best Health. I think we have crisis services coming down. We also have the Western New York Peacemakers. They're down here. They're circulating through the crowd, helping out. The first thing we're trying to do is help people get through this time till they can find out, is their loved one okay? And it's going to be a long evening for some folks waiting for that news, and that's our first priority right now, is to get through the trauma. But this trauma isn't going to end tonight. The ripple effects of this are going to be some pretty long lasting.
And for people who do experience, or who are experiencing those types of problems right now, who need help, where can they go? Who can they turn to?
Well, first of all, we have a lot of agencies, and we're going to be coordinating where you can call. First of all, don't keep it in. Talk to people. It's understandable to be hurt, afraid, angry, to have all these things at the same time. This is real life and death here, and to be able to talk to your friends, your family, your pastors. We've had members of the clergy down here really being very helpful. So reach out. First thing, reach out to the supports that are next to you. You know, the people that are close to you. Don't be afraid to talk about it, about how you're feeling. And then you can reach out if somebody's really having a crisis. There's crisis services, 834-3131 for adults. There's the CARES line for kids. But there's much more that we don't know than we do know at present.
And as this city continues to process all that is happening here, what's your final message to people at home who are watching this and who are seeing this unfold on social media?
I think the first thing I'd want people to realize is we're a community, and we are all hurting for and bleeding for the people down here who, as you look around, who are waiting, and they're connecting with each other. And so we want people to know that all Buffalo and all Erie County is with you. I know the county executive has been on site. That's who I heard about this from. He called me directly. So this is be part of a community. You don't have to be alone with this. This is a lot to take in.
Well, thank you so much, Mark O'Brien. We appreciate your time this evening, and I know we'll be checking back in with you a little bit later tonight.
Thank you.
Jackie and Jeff, back to you.
All right, Tara, let me just ask you one quick question here. We know about, obviously, the number here of the victims. Could you talk to us about just what you're seeing at the scene there, whether you see Stop the Violence, we still see police tape and them trying to secure the scene, but talk to us about just what you are seeing and what you are hearing.
Yes, Jeff, we're hearing a lot from people. When we got here earlier this afternoon, a lot of folks were on the phone. They were trying to contact their loved ones, people that they thought were inside, people that they know that worked at this TOPS location. We had a high school teacher come down to the area who said he had 8 students in there working, and he was trying to locate them in the crowds that were coming out of the TOPS. Police were escorting people out of the building in small groups, and he was trying to look for them. He was fearful for his students that he sees during the school day. We also spoke to another man who was in there buying juice. He usually sits on a bench outside, and for some reason he just didn't sit there today, and he said he could have been one of those victims. He was describing what it was like in that Tops. He said the shooter was crouching down, shooting at anything and everyone. He also said that when he got to the scene, the shooter, the suspect, he began with a woman, then shot a deacon, then another woman, and entered the building. We've learned that that security officer, a former Buffalo police officer, was shot dead as well. Pure evil. That is what law enforcement officials are calling this, and that is what is being heard and echoed here by community members. They are upset and they are shocked that this happened here at their local Tops on a Saturday that started out as a beautiful sunny day, people out and about getting their groceries, and we're still here. Crime tape, a very active scene, Jeff.
It is shocking, isn't it? Tara, thank you very much. Stand by. We will be coming back to you to set the scene for us there. Officials all over America and Western New York are speaking out about this terrible shooting.
And here is what Congressman Brian Higgins said during the news conference just a few moments ago.
The eyes of the nation are on Buffalo, and those eyes are full of tears, and they're full of sympathy for the violence and the tragedy that's been exacted on good, innocent people.
The United States taking notice of this horrific act. As we previously mentioned, the president has been briefed on this situation. And so far, 10 people have been killed at the Tops Market on Jefferson Avenue in Buffalo. 3 people there were injured. And let's bring back in Bernie Tolbert, the former FBI director, to talk more about the ongoing investigation. And, sir, if you were in charge of this investigation, if you were leading it, what would you be doing in terms of coordination?
Well, as I said earlier, the coordination is a key word. I'd be making sure that I was in touch with all of our local law enforcement partners and ensuring that we brought whatever to bear, any resources that the FBI could provide on not only a local level but on a national level. Certainly, we have a lab in Washington D.C. Actually at Quantico, Washington D.C. and Quantico, Virginia, where we offer that for any kinds of forensics examinations that need to be done. They certainly have capabilities to do that here in Erie County, but we would make that. We would, if manpower was needed, we'd ensure that we get FBI agents from other offices to augment local authorities to the extent they need it. And again, I mentioned all of immediately we'd send out communications to all the FBI officers across the country, giving them the details that we know, asking them to check with their sources, check with their records, and do anything they can to shed some light on what happened here in Buffalo.
During the news conference today, Bernie, we heard one law enforcer mention that they were getting help from the highest levels of the Justice Department. What does that mean to you?
Well, you start with the Attorney General's office. This is something I'm sure they've briefed the Attorney General on, because there is a federal nexus in terms of a federal violation. There will be a federal prosecution, and that's
the hate crime. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes,
the hate crime charge.
The hate crime aspect of it, yes, and possible. Well, again, it's too early, but if there's a terrorism, a domestic terrorism aspect element of it, so. The Attorney General will be briefed on that, and then that individual would be briefed probably on a regular basis, at least a daily basis, if not more often, that to make sure that from a federal level, at the highest federal level, we were keeping people advised, and that helps to ensure that we get the resources that we need.
You know, this may sound like a really dumb question. Here we are on a Saturday, and it appears that they have a lot of information about this young man, where he came from. Are there enough resources to, start working immediately on finding out about this young man and who he was involved in, his social media accounts, all that? Is anything about a weekend going to slow things down, Bernie?
No, I don't think so, not at all. Again, from a law enforcement perspective, it's all hands on deck. So whether it's the Buffalo Police, the Erie County Sheriff, State Police, all of their personnel will be at the ready and available. Same thing on a federal level. The FBI, ATF. ATF, I'm sure, have by now, if they haven't, they soon will have determined where that gun came from and what steps it went through before it got to this individual, where he purchased it at, where it was manufactured, all of those things. So being a weekend, no, unfortunately, when I was in the FBI, we used to always say at 4 o'clock on Friday, it seems that a bank got robbed. Well, it didn't matter if it was at 4 o'clock on Friday or 10 o'clock on a Monday morning. The same amount of resources, the same investigative effort would take place. So no, that won't hurt at all. Everyone will be able to provide whatever resources they have. These kinds of incidents get national attention, and it's Buffalo today, but there have been situations in the past where people have had to respond, and there'll be, unfortunately, probably situations in the future. So no, the public should rest assured and be comfortable that this is all hands on deck. Every investigative resource that's available to law enforcement is being utilized and will continue to be utilized until we get to the bottom. So right now, there's a lot that we don't know. When these incidents happen, a lot of information starts coming, very quickly, and you have to sort through it, sift through it. Some of it has some truth to it. Some of it is absolutely true, and some of it is not. But that's the process. That's what you want to make sure that everything that you can find out, every bit of information you get, all leads are run to ground, so we'll know exactly where things stand.
And Bernie, let's talk about the criminal cases here. We know that the case that's being led by the Erie County District Attorney's Office, so again, those would be state charges. That's moving very quickly. Mm-hmm. We anticipate an arraignment to happen within moments, perhaps maybe within an hour or two. It looks like that is moving very, very quickly. In terms of federal charges now with the hate crime and the violent extremism, when would you anticipate that case to pick up steam?
Well, it's difficult to say, and I don't want to pretend to speak for the U.S. Attorney's Office. Once you file charges, the clock is running. So they're going to want to position themselves so that at the point that charges are filed, they've got as much information at that point as they possibly can have, so that they'll be able to, when it's time for an initial appearance, when it's time for arraignments, when it's time for any suppression hearings, that they're in a good position at that point. So I can't say when it will happen. This will be something that the U.S. Attorney Trini Ross will want to work closely with John Flynn from the DA's office. So all of that, those things will come into play. But I think the one thing that I'm confident of is, without question, is that it's going to be done in a manner that best protects the integrity of each investigation, the federal investigation and the local investigation.
All right, Bernie.
And I would.
Yep. No, go ahead.
I was going to add. These kinds of things you don't expect them to happen in your community. We don't really come to grips with these until they actually happen. But I have a son who lives approximate to that tops, and he called me as I was coming back from eat lunch, and told me that he and his wife were going to Tops. He goes there a couple of days a week. He said he was going there, but then his wife wanted to get some iced coffee, so they went someplace else. And I would have never. These are the kinds of things you just can't. You can't predict. Who doesn't go shopping on a Saturday afternoon? Who would expect that their local supermarket would be the victim? And so it hits home. It hits close to everyone. And in this particular case, our entire community is impacted by it. And so I'm hoping that we will all use these as a moment to comfort each other, find ways to make our community stronger, make our community better, and ensure that hopefully we can.
We are continuing to follow the latest breaking news coming out of Buffalo and that mass shooting at a top supermarket there. Joining us now is Buffalo Mayor Byron Brown. Mayor, our sincerest condolences. Tell us, how is your community doing right now?
Thank you very much. A lot of pain in the community right now, an absolutely horrific incident. Beautiful day in the city of Buffalo prior to this. The mass shooting, 13 people shot, 10 dead, any community's worst nightmare.
We heard all of that emotion at the press conference, and even the reality that as you are trying to comfort, and you and others are trying to comfort the people there, that, as you said, there is no comfort in Buffalo right now with this tragedy, 10 dead, 3 injured. Mayor, I'm wondering if you can tell us anything more about the status of those victims who are seeking medical treatment. How are they doing?
It's my understanding that those who are seeking medical treatment in the hospital right now, they have non-life-threatening injuries, so that is a real blessing out of a very dark and difficult situation. So the 3 wounded have non-life-threatening injuries.
We are glad to hear that, and of course we are thinking of them and the 10 who are deceased and all of the families. But as we've heard, this is supposedly racially targeted. 11 of the 13 victims were black. Racial slurs were being shouted by the suspect. So the victimizing, the terrorizing goes beyond just the physical victims. Mayor, tell us, what's your reaction to this mass shooting being investigated as a hate crime?
Well, there is no place in our communities, no place in our country for that kind of behavior, no place for hate. Buffalo is known as the city of good neighbors nationally and internationally, and this is someone that traveled 3 hours away to come to our community and do this. We absolutely have to stop these kinds of events from occurring in Buffalo or anywhere else in our country.
You stressed the point that the suspect was not a part of the Buffalo community, an outsider who drove hours, hundreds of miles to get there. Do you know anything more about why he targeted your city and the top supermarket in Buffalo?
That's still under investigation. We don't know why. Again, it is suspected that this was a racially motivated crime. This particular supermarket is in a neighborhood that is roughly 85% African American. It is actually the neighborhood that I live in. From time to time, my family has shopped at this supermarket. So it is the type of situation where, but for the grace of God, go I. It could have been me, my wife, my son, another member of my family that was a victim of this horrific crime. And in fact, I do know people whose family members were victims of this terrible crime.
Do you know, are people still waiting to find out the status of their loved ones? How is that going?
Sadly, there are people still waiting to find out the status of their loved ones. The identification process is ongoing right now. That is being done as sensitively and painstakingly as possible, making sure that things are being done right and with great care for the victims, for the deceased. We have the families in a waiting area where we're providing them with food and counseling. And we know that as a community, we are wrapping our arms around these families. We are letting them know that they're loved. Some of these families will receive the worst news of their lives, and we just want to be there for them to comfort them. We have identified some of the 10, but not all at this point.
And we are wrapping our arms around all of you there in Buffalo. You know, you said how you've been at that supermarket. I think that there were a lot of viewers and can relate to just the universality of being at the supermarket on a Saturday and feeling like it would be inconceivable that such a thing could happen. What do you think needs to change to prevent occurrences like this?
We have to be tougher about illegal weapons. We have to be tougher about automatic weapons and semi-automatic weapons. All too often, weapons are getting into the hands of people who should not have them, and we're seeing these mass casualty situations play themselves out again and again and again.
Weapons as part of the problem. Do you know anything more about how weapons as part of the problem? Do you know anything more about how the shooter procured the weapons that he used?
Very early in the investigation now, we don't know how the shooter procured the weapon that he used. We do know that the shooter was heavily armed. The shooter was very much personally fortified to protect himself against gunshots and injury. So this seems to be very premeditated, someone that was very well armed, and this type of situation just cannot be allowed to continue in our country, where innocent people are having their lives snuffed out for absolutely no reason.
Mayor Brown, 10 people in your community dead, 3 more wounded. Luckily, it sounds like those are not life-threatening injuries. We have learned of a little bit more about one of the shooter's victims, that security guard, the retired police officer. What more can you tell us about his story?
Good man, retired police officer. Personally, I knew him very well. I knew him as a police officer. I knew his family very well. I knew his parents, someone that cared about the community, was well loved in the community. After retirement, worked security at the top supermarket and was a friendly face, a pleasant person, a comforting person for people who came into the market to see. Just a terrible tragedy that a community protector, a community hero, lost his life in this tragic, unnecessary way.
Such an unnecessary tragedy. Buffalo Mayor Byron Brown, we are so saddened by your community's loss, and we appreciate you joining us.
Thank you very much, Lana.
We're now going to head back to coverage from our Buffalo affiliate, WIVB.
Mentioning anger, that this has come from outside our community and been perpetrated on us here. I wanted to mention that at the close of that emotional news conference, Father Paul Sile from the diocese here, the Catholic diocese, said no matter what your religion, we need to go inside our spiritual selves. And he said we need to work toward unity and never division. And then the Reverend Darius by saying we pray for those who witnessed this today, and we pray that justice will be done. And we had a room full of law enforcers there's case.
All right, let's check back in with Bernie Tolbert, former FBI Buffalo director. Can you hear us, Bernie?
I can.
Okay.
Yes.
As perhaps maybe you might be, talking with former members of law enforcement who maybe you have, talked to. I'm sure your cell phone is buzzing as well. What are you hearing from people just out there in the community and perhaps members of law enforcement who you deal with on a daily basis?
I think it's much to what was just mentioned in terms of the feelings of not only being sad but anger. There's people who are angry that this has happened, and I've heard from folks who feel just that way. Both law enforcement people, but also those who are outside of law enforcement. And when you talk about emotion, one thing I want to give a shout out to our local law enforcement community is that, you know, they're individual, they're people too, just like everyone else, and they have to deal with these kinds of things a lot more than most people, and they're impacted by it. They may have to present a front. I've got this under control. We're going to do the right thing. But you know, they're people, and it touches their heart, and they're hurting by this too. So I give them a lot of credit for having to suffer through the emotions of this, yet at the same time do the outstanding job that they're doing.
Just want to bring up the speed of the investigation. Right, we know that this has reached, obviously, international news, and the White House has commented. In terms of having so many resources looking at this investigation, the speed of it, with having so many resources involved, does that slow things down at all? Does it speed things up? Can you just break that down for us?
Well, no, I don't think it necessarily slows it down, but every bit of information that they get, every lead, everything they uncover, those all have to be investigated fully. So having the resources is important, because you want to make sure that you do all that. And as you might imagine, anytime you have a situation like this, everybody has... a lot of people have something to say. People, they have comments on the individual, who they think did it, or things they may have heard, and law enforcement has to look at each of these and at least at some point you know, dismiss it, or say, yeah, this is we're going to put into the box over here that we're going to do some further investigation on. So the resources are necessary. I don't think it slows it down. One thing I'm very confident in is that it'll be a thorough investigation. There'll be no shortcuts. There'll be no skipping over anything. All of the law enforcement agencies involved want to make sure that this thing is solid, that this investigation is solid, that it's tightly done, and at the end of the day, when it goes to prosecution, there'll be no issues. So, yeah, I think the speed of the investigation will be dictated by the amount of information they get and the amount of what's necessary to make sure everything has been tracked down completely, run to ground, as I said earlier.
Bernie, thank you for your insight. We ask you to please stand by, because we're trying to hear from a lot of different voices here. One of the voices we've been hearing from is Tara Lynch, who has been on scene all afternoon at the Tops Market on Jefferson Avenue, where 18 people were shot today. 10 of them were killed. And Tara has been talking to a number of people who were witnesses or had connections to people.
Darius Pridgeon, but today you were telling me you're Darius because this is your neighborhood, this is your Tops where you shop. So put this into perspective for us, that this event happened in your neighborhood.
Yeah, this event happened just a few blocks from where I live, and this is the Tops where my wife and I shop. We were here yesterday, and so it's heartbreaking because, you know, people, it's like a family when you come in here. Everybody knows each other. You get stopped in the aisles to talk, and so for this to happen here is really troubling and very upsetting.
That's what I was hearing from residents when I first got on scene, and we were over at the intersection with Riley. They were on the phone trying to call their loved ones to locate them. I did notice you just delivered some terrible news to residents, and unfortunately that is part of your job tonight. So walk me through what that is like, because you have to have your political hat on, but you're a neighbor as well.
You know, I think sometimes it's hard to have all these hats on when it's something like this happens. You just end up being a man, you know, the person of the community. But to have to tell somebody that their mother is deceased is tough, you know, because they were hoping and praying that she might not be one of the victims, but unfortunately that's part of the job. And so it's hard to move forward, but what this evil jerk did, took the lives of not only African Americans, he shot at several store employees who were white, but I believe in my heart he came for black people. I believe he drove here for black people. And before you can heal, you got to grieve. And so right now, I don't give a daggone about him. You have to pray for me because I don't care about him right now. I care about the families of people who their mom is not coming home tonight, or others who are hurt and in the hospital. That's what I care about tonight. So it's hard to get to healing until we felt the hurt.
When we did get here on scene, we were talking with a high school teacher at 8 of his students, and they're working. And I'm not sure if you knew anybody personally, but are your loved ones okay? Are people that you know okay here tonight?
Nope. You know, one of the most bravest persons, because it was released in the press release, I can say, security guard who, one of the nicest retired Buffalo police officers you ever want to meet in your life, always speaking to everybody at the door, and for him to be killed just trying to help somebody else is so important.
And when we look at this neighborhood tonight, there were a lot of people here. There are still people coming out that are trying to help each other. Are there services people can reach out to? Are there places people can call?
You know, the county executive right away sent down people from his mental health department. They are there with the families right now. They are available, and that's so important, a very important question, because, you know, in other areas, when you have one death, you have a team of people. So I'm grateful that the county executive, when he saw that we had, even before the toll was at 10, I was standing right with him as he and the sheriff were calling in supports into this neighborhood. I just hope that those supports are utilized.
And something that, you know, you mentioned there, the security guard, you seem to, because you shop at this top, you've known him personally. Can you describe him for us? Can you describe what he meant to this neighborhood?
You know, people trusted him. So you knew if you got into trouble here, that he was going to be there, and not just to lock you up, but we worked together at one point for some kids who did some damage, and he sat them down and was like, yeah, I told you. And, you know, so to lose a man like that is pretty tough. And anybody, somebody shopping, somebody who just came out for eggs and butter, it's tough. So regardless of whether they had a title, regardless of whether they were known, it still hurts and it's hard.
I'm going to ask you to put your council member hat on here, because what we've seen an uptick in violence, especially amid this pandemic. We're in a point now where we're seeing this event happen today. We've seen other events happen in the last couple of weeks, an increase in shootings. How, as a city, can we combat this? Would you call it an epidemic?
And I said this earlier, I don't want to politicize it. I don't have on my council hat. I got on my dad's hat. I got on my community son's hat. I got on my hurting hat. So once we've all had a chance to deal with that, then we can deal with this. Right now, this community, this area needs to really wrap the...
Council President Darius Pridgen, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Jackie and Jeff, back to you.
All right, News 4's Tara Lynch there with the Bishop Pridgen. And
you're seeing the emotion there. I mean,
right.
he's ready to break down. He knows so many of these people, and then has to comfort the community. It's
Sure.
just it's an unbelievable task today. And as he said, he doesn't have his council hat on right now. He's got his dad hat, his community hat, his hat of someone who is hurting and wants to help other people as well.
Well, with his position as being the bishop at True Bethel, he oftentimes works with families who have suffered traumatic loss.
One that they had lost their mother in this shooting. I mean, it just horrific to even think about it, what he's going through and what the community is going through there. I did want to mention that, and you know, we've been talking about this is being investigated as a hate crime and a racially motivated violent extremism, but the commissioner mentioned that 11 of the victims who are dead are African American, 2 are white. there was definitely targeting going on there as he came in.
Absolutely. All right, let's go to former Buffalo Police Captain Jeff Rinaldo, with formerly of the Buffalo Police Department. Jeff, we of course have more information now that we have heard from numerous officials at the press conference there. More information than what we had previously. How do you react to the information from the U.S. Attorney's Office, from the District Attorney's Office, the violent extremism, the hate crime information? How do you surmise this?
Well, I think it answers a lot of questions that members of the public and the media have had. Clearly, this was premeditated. Clearly, it was a hate crime, which means that now you will probably see federal prosecution of this crime. The penalties are greater on the federal level for hate crimes than necessarily on the state level. But it's just absolutely unbelievable and disgusting. The fact that somebody has that kind of hatred in their heart to carry out a crime like this and then target the city of Buffalo. I think Trini Ross said it best. The emotions right now, the anger, the hopelessness that people are feeling, the best thing everybody can do right now is hold one another's hands and pray, and not allow this to foster further anger and hatred and acts of violence in this community. That's what this idiot wanted, and we will not allow him to win.
And in terms of the investigation here, we heard very clearly from District Attorney John Flynn that he wants to do everything the right way in terms of the investigation, piecing it together, and having enough information and accurate information to present to the court during arraignment. Can you talk a little bit more specifically about how all that is pieced together?
Sure. So this is a very complex crime scene, but it's a very complex investigation as well. So clearly there's a lot of social media content that it appears this subject put out there. Right now, I would presume that there's federal authorities, state authorities, local authorities combing through, collecting that social media data. Obviously, the person was not from the city of Buffalo, so wherever he's from, I would presume that there's investigators at his residence right now conducting a search warrant and gathering additional information. But you also have a very large crime scene to process, and it has to be done methodically. So there's initially you want to get him charged to be able to hold him, get out of any type of bail debates. But then I would presume that you will see additional charges laid as this investigation carries on.
And you would anticipate federal charges as well being filed at some point too. And do you anticipate that happening days from now?
I would think that once he's initially charged, which it appears that it will happen tonight, you will see federal charges follow probably within the next day or two. Same thing. Once he's initially charged, then you can take a little bit of a deep breath and now sort through all of the evidence that you were able to collect to determine the most appropriate charges to place on him.
Jeff, I'm sorry, I'm hearing something else here. For the police department to handle this, you have several levels of law enforcement now that are working on this. Are they working cooperatively, or are they in their own individual silos? We heard about that kind of thing years ago, where law enforcers didn't really cooperate with one agency or the other. Has that changed now? Is everyone working together?
Absolutely. You know, in my tenure there at BPD, especially in the last 6-7 years, the cooperation between local and federal and state agencies has been outstanding, right? I think you've seen, because of the number of these incidents that have happened around the country, everybody in law enforcement realizes that the only way to truly attempt to prevent these, but really then to also respond to and prosecute them, is to work collaboratively. And especially in Buffalo, Buffalo PD handles hundreds of cases a year that involves federal agencies, state agencies, county agencies. So again, I think that right now everyone's being given a very specific task to do in this investigation. People's expertise are being called upon in terms of the different facets of what needs to be looked at and investigated, and then collaboratively they will present those findings to the Erie County DA's office, and then eventually probably to the U.S. Attorney's office. So again, the best arena for him to face charges is the one that's chosen.
Well, we have been told that there is live stream. That this young man, who was 18 years old, live streamed this crime today, that there is video of him actually shooting people. And more beyond that in terms of his racial motivation. So who handles that kind of thing, Jeff?
I think what you'll see on the social media side is the federal agencies are used to that, right? They do a lot of social media. I wouldn't be surprised if the Secret Service gets engaged in this investigation to help do that deep dive. The BPD has people that can do social media investigations. So again, I think that you'll see the coordination and the quarterbacking of this so that everyone's expertise is utilized appropriately to gather all of the necessary evidence that's out there in this case. And based on what they're saying, the social media is going to play a very large role in the appropriateness of what charges are ultimately placed beyond today or this evening.
All right, former Buffalo Police Captain Jeff Rinaldo, really do appreciate your time. Obviously, your expertise is very much needed in these types of circumstances, awful circumstances, to make sense, to help make sense of the process here as we move forward.
Thank you so much, Jeff, and hopefully we'll be back to you shortly. We are waiting for the governor, Governor Kathy Hochul. She is coming to Buffalo. We understand that she's just a few minutes away, and will be joining with a news conference, another news conference. If you did not see the previous news conference, there was a great deal of information coming out from all parts of this community. Didn't mention Mark Poloncarz is the Erie County executive. He said all of the county's resources have been made available and mental health counselors are on site. There are so many people standing around that supermarket who either witnessed what happened or are concerned about a relative they thought might be in that store. So there's all that emotion happening there, on top of just the trauma that you go through knowing that something so horrible has happened in your community, in your neighborhood, in the supermarket where you normally shop. As we've said, 13 people were shot there. Some of them were shot outside the supermarket, some inside the supermarket. 13 shot. 10 people have lost their lives this afternoon in Buffalo. And
not only are we remembering the victims, honoring them, we're also talking about the heroes here. The former Buffalo police officer, retired, who was working security at that Tops Market and tried to stop the shooter. He unfortunately lost his life. Then we're also talking about 2 Buffalo police officers who rushed to the scene, and they were able to get the shooter to disarm himself or go to the ground, get him in custody. And then we're also talking about those who are in the community who are trying to help those who are grieving.
There's a lot of heroes here today in terms of what happened there that was so sudden and so unexpected. It is our understanding that this young suspect, he is a suspect, 18 years old, a white male, opened fire outside that Tops Market on Jefferson Avenue, shot some people there, then went inside and encountered that retired Buffalo police officer who was working as a security guard, very well known and well loved in that neighborhood. Security guard engaged him in gunfire, shot him, but his body armor kept him from being wounded. And so that police officer was shot and killed. The young man, the suspect, continued on through the supermarket shooting, went to the back, and then we understand also came back to the front. We have heard some stories of people begging for their lives. We don't know how that situation unfolded or how it ended. But when he went back to the front of the Tops, that's where these two Buffalo police officers who had been called to the scene encountered him. And we were told by the police commissioner that the suspect held a gun to his neck in the face of these two police officers, and they were able to talk him out of whatever he was going to do and get him to put that weapon down, and took him into custody. He went immediately to Buffalo headquarters downtown. The DA worked on a very quick arraignment. He called in a judge, Judge Hanna, tonight to arraign him immediately on a charge of murder in the first degree, and that carries a penalty of life in prison without parole. Now, that's just one charge, but he had to put a charge against him, and the judge arraigned him, we understand, maybe within the last hour or so.
That arraignment could be going on right now. It may not have even started. It may have already wrapped up. We're still working on details of that. But nonetheless, though, the state case is moving very fast in terms of dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's, and making sure that, and he is a suspect, but that the criminal case is handled appropriately. And we do anticipate also a federal case also being introduced here on the hate crime aspect of what happened and what the FBI has already called racially motivated violent extremism. So those are charges that will have to be addressed as well through the courts.
We understand that he had a racial slur written on his weapon. We also understand that there's a lot of other information out there in social media that point to him being a white supremacist. Now, we didn't hear that from the law enforcement officers. We're getting a lot of other information in, but the fact that they are so quickly charging him with a hate crime and racially motivated violent extremism, domestic terrorism, tells you that they're definitely moving in that direction.
Okay. So let's bring in one more time former FBI Director Bernie Tolbert with the Buffalo FBI, and specifically ask you, as we have heard from the district attorney, that arraignment, when he spoke a couple hours ago now, that it was imminent, it was happening very quickly. Are you at all surprised about the speed of getting before a judge?
No, not surprised. I'm sure the district attorney wants to make sure that he can hold this individual, and you have to. There's a limit of. I'm sure he wants to be able to arraign him, so that allows you to hold him. Bail, if there's any bail considerations, you can go through those. So I'm not surprised at the speed. That's just an initial first step on the part of the district attorney to make to ensure that they can continue on with the investigation without having to worry about this guy possibly being fleeing. So I'm sure that he's held, and I'm sure there's no bail or an amount of bail that will make it impossible for him to be free.
Bernie, where do you think he will be held?
Well, I think he'll be held, I would guess he'll be held at the Erie County Holding Center. I'm not sure if they have special provisions for a high-profile suspect that they have, but for immediately at the Erie County Holding Center, because it'll be a local charge that he's being held on. And this will be a discussion. Where's the best place to keep him to ensure that we can conduct our investigation and not have to worry about any kind of interference, not have, certainly you have to protect him. Once you arrest him, you're responsible for him. So they want to make sure that they have him in a place where they can protect him, because there'll be a lot of people, I'm sure, inside of jails and prisons who might not like what this individual has done. So he'll certainly be in an isolated area where he's not mixing with the general population.
What do you expect to see out of the court hearing when it happens, and in terms of the information that the DA, that prosecutors will present to the judge? Do you anticipate them using a lot of language to, obviously, they want no bail, they want that, but do you anticipate them using a lot of language to make sure that they're making it as convincing as possible in terms of holding him?
Well, you know, in the beginning processes, you don't, when you get to trial, it has to be proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Right now, it doesn't have to. You just have to have enough information to convince a neutral magistrate, a judge, whoever, that this person, that a crime was committed, and that this person is likely the person that committed it. And depending upon the seriousness of the crime, that he should be held without bail. So I don't think it'll be a long hearing, and clearly the district attorney's office isn't going to. They'll use the minimal amount of evidence necessary to ensure that they can get what they want. You know, it'll be weeks down the road when whenever they get to other kinds of legal hearings, and then ultimately a trial, if it gets to that point, where more and more information will come out. And again, that investigation still has to be done, much of it. So
Bernie,
some of it is to be determined.
We understand, and we've been talking about the arraignment that was, expected and probably is over by now. But we understand that we have a photo of the suspect in court, and we're seeing it at the same time you are.
So that's a picture there, obviously from the back of the courtroom.
Right.
But you could see, an individual there. That's from Kelsey Anderson's tweet. And you can see that he is there sitting and awaiting for the court proceeding. Bernie, is still with us?
And Kelsey Anderson, who was at the scene at the Tops Market earlier this afternoon, we understand that she is in court for this hearing, and she will be able to tell us more about what's happening there.
And certainly the suspect is entitled to legal defense, either through a private attorney or a public defender. But how would you anticipate that arraignment being carried out?
I don't think there'll be anything outside of the normal. The security will be, and certainly it will be something that's enhanced, because you got to say there are a lot of people who are angry. Probably will be possibly held in a closed courtroom for just that reason, to make sure that proper security precautions are taken. They don't want anyone getting at this individual, and anything that's going to make distract from your ability to fully. So I don't think there'll be anything special about arraignment, other than the fact that be some probably enhanced security.
And one question I had was whether the media was going to be allowed in. Sometimes those things don't happen, and it
the
appears
fact that they allowed a photo
media is
too.
allowed in. Yes.
Yeah. They allowed a photo tonight, so we showed you as much as we've been able to see, but as we said, Kelsey Anderson is there. We expect to be talking to her in just a few minutes. But we are also waiting for the Governor Kathy Hochul, who has come to Buffalo after this horrific event, and will be having a news conference, as we understand it, down on Jefferson Avenue as well, to bring us up to date on what the state view and what the state resources are that can be used to help deal with this terrible situation.
Bernie, is there anything that you wanted to get out to the community, just as a former law enforcement official? Anything that you wanted to share?
I would just say to the community, first and foremost, we're all hurting, and I would ask that the community look after each other, understand that some people will be a lot more angry, and as they process this, their anger may come out. Understand that, but also help them to see that we're all in this, and that our law enforcement officials are going to do the very, very best they can to make sure that justice is served here. So I would, as I said at the beginning, I would hope that we will find it within ourselves to make sure with each other, and that we become stronger as a result of this, as opposed to more divided. I remember back in 1968 when Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated. Anger couldn't be held. We did things that probably didn't serve us well. Understand that now, and that we can do a better job of taking care of and understanding each other's feelings.
Bernie, we're losing a little bit of what you said there, but it is a message of unity at this time for everybody to come together and not be divided by what happened today.
Absolutely. We want to get back out to the scene there. News 4's Tara Lynch, she has been live all afternoon, all evening at the Tops Market ever since these horrible events unfolded and police responded, and we want to get to her now. Tara, you have, I see you are talking to a county legislator there.
Yes, we are, Jeff. We are here with County Legislator Howard Johnson. You were one of the first people I spoke with when I got to the scene today. Update me now. What have you learned, and what are you feeling?
Well, what I've learned so far is probably what a lot of the community's already learned. He wasn't from the community. He drove 5 hours away to conduct this heinous crime. He's in custody right now, and I know they are arraigning him as we speak.
And we understand he is being arraigned on murder charges as well as hate crime charges. You live in this community.
Yes.
This is your Tops.
This is my
We
Tops.
were just talking to City Councilman Darius Pridgen. He was telling us that this is his Tops as well. So put that into perspective, because you have your legislator hat on, but you're also a community member.
Well, you come here and shop, and and the last thing you're thinking about is that a crime is going to happen here. A crime of this nature is going to happen at a Tops where, the community comes, everyone comes, my mother comes, folks, grandparents comes, aunts, uncles, and all that.
What was that moment like when you heard that this had happened and you were on the phone? Were you calling people to find out?
I was actually in the neighborhood. I was coming from downtown, and when I heard about it, I was devastated. This is just very devastating at this point right now.
You said this hits close to home for you because you live here. This is something that you never thought would come to this community. Put that into perspective for me.
I mean, when we see it, most of the time we see it, you see it because it's happening in other communities. You'll never envision it happens here. Buffalo's a city of good neighbors, so that's what you think. We have this city of good neighbors here, but when you have this come and hit home, it's just like it sends out the message: no one is safe.
What is it like as well? A lot of residents were coming up to me earlier this afternoon showing me photos of things that they're seeing on social media from, this was a live streamed event to my understanding. What is it like for this community to see that and be able to replay this over and over again?
It's a reenactment of the heinous crime. That's what it is, and it's going to cause a lot of trauma. My suggestion is they need to take it down on Facebook, and people on Facebook need to stop passing stuff like that around. That's my suggestion, because it only reinforces the trauma that's already happened.
And as a county, we've seen an uptick in violent crime, especially amid the pandemic. I asked Councilmember Pridgen this as well, but how, as a city, as a county, do we stop this type of violent crime?
Again, I don't believe there's a silver bullet answer to the crime, but we need effective gun laws. There's no reason that anybody should be able to have access to an AR-15 or any assault rifle whatsoever. I think first it has to be that. We have to put tougher laws on guns. We have to put tougher laws on. That's just point blank.
And when we hear about, Mr. Pridgen was sharing with us that security guard who was shot, who was a former Buffalo police officer, who knew everyone in this community. Yes. What is it like to see people that you may have seen earlier this week walking down the street, and now we're learning that they're in critical condition, they might be dead, some people might not know where their loved ones are. What is that like for you, having to be a person that's to tell people that information? That's
very hurtful, because everybody in the community is going to know somebody who was affected by this gun violence here. We'll be able to relate in one way or another to the individuals who were struck by this tragedy.
When you stand here and you have the ability to talk to your neighbors, the entire county, people from outside of Erie County, what is your message to them tonight? I know we're hearing from the president, we're hearing from people at the top of the U.S., but you are here in this community every day. What is your message to them?
My message as a community is that, to be prayerful. I think that's it right now. It's not much more you can offer. The tragedy is here, it's happened. I mean, I don't know how much more you can offer, but I would be praying for them, and I'm encouraging them just to be prayerful.
What's next as we try to move forward as a community?
I think the community will probably try to get back to business as usual, but I don't think that's going to happen. This is going to put the community at a heightened state. So we don't know what that heightened state is, but I know to put the community in a heightened state, you know, because this happened right here. We don't see that much here. We don't see tragedies like that here. So it's going to put the community at a heightened state, and I think we have to be on alert in regards to that.
We did speak with the Commissioner of Mental Health, and I just want to remind folks at home, if they do need assistance processing this information, who can they reach out to?
Yes, they can reach out to the community. We have Best Self, Endeavor. There's a bunch of crisis centers that's out here. I think right now what we're trying to do is establish a on-site crisis center right now. So we're working through the details of that, something close in the community, something that they can walk to. So I wanted to have the community to stay on alert for that, because we'll come out with the proper media advisories, Facebook and all those things, because we recognize that, you know, people in the community is going to need that, those who's actually it happened to, and those who's actually just witnessed it.
Legislator, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate your perspective here, and we know, we've heard on social media, Buffalo is here for this community tonight, so thank you so much. And this is both of our hometowns,
Absolutely.
And this hits home for everyone in this county, so we really appreciate it tonight.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much, and we're going to send it back now to Don and Jackie in studio.
Thank you, Tara. What a night.
It's an unbelievable night, and you see Don Postal's here with me now. Jeff Preval is still with our coverage that we've been going on for hours now. We want to bring you up to speed. 10 people have been killed at the Tops Market on Jefferson Avenue in Buffalo this afternoon. 3 people were wounded as well. So many bits of information are coming out, brand new. Yes, exactly. Yes, right now. But we want to let you know that the suspect, who is 18 years old, a white male, is being arraigned right now in downtown Buffalo. This is as much as we can show you of the courtroom. This is Kelsey Anderson in there, and she tweeted out this picture. This is all that we're allowed to see at this point. Judge Hanna was called in by DA John Flynn and for this arraignment because he wanted to move very quickly. We believe the suspect is on the right there in the white shirt.
We are told his name is Peyton Gendron from Conklin, New York.
Well, they talked about the fact that he was from hours away. He drove from hours away to bring this horror into Buffalo today. And the name that we're getting, Peyton Gendron from Conklin, New York, the DA did not want to say his name because he didn't even want to give him any type of celebrity for what he perpetrated on this community today. But
John
we are
Flynn
letting you know.
was very fired up when he was speaking, and he has promised justice will be served swiftly in this mass shooting. This is what John Flynn had to say earlier tonight.
We here in Erie County, though, are not waiting. I have already called a judge, Judge Hanna, to come downtown immediately and arraign this individual. So within the next hour, this individual will be arraigned on a charge of murder in the first degree. I am not even going to mention his name right now, one, because the arraignment hasn't occurred, but more importantly, I don't want to give him any celebrityism at all right now. I don't want to give him anything right now that puts attention on him and the alleged, and again, I say alleged, despicable acts that were committed today in our great city.
Well, that was DA John Flynn. As we know, this is called a racial hate crime by a stranger who came into our community and fired at that Tops supermarket around 2:30 this afternoon. And the collective heart of the Queen City is shedding tears tonight.
Absolutely. 13 people shot, 10 people dead. Tops Market wanted to clarify something that was said earlier during the news conference. They did have 4 store employees who were shot. Only one of them was killed, and that was the security guard that everybody knew. He's a retired police officer. He was right at the front of the store. He engaged the suspect in gunfire, and he was killed. He's definitely a hero. He tried to stop that man at the front door. So they lost one employee today, and 4 others were wounded. We do not know their conditions. It was pretty shocking to hear earlier today. We talked to Mike Hughes from Kaleida Health that only 3 people were taken from the scene to the hospital because the hospitals were gearing up for a big influx of victims, and only 3 of them were taken to the hospital. 10 people were dead at the scene.
And I assume they're being taken to the Erie County morgue tonight.
We assume that, yes. I was going to say that the wounded victims went to ECMC, and they have a trauma center there, and they're geared up to handle, these kinds of injuries. So
what struck me from watching at home, Jackie, was how Erie County Sheriff John Garcia, DA John Flynn, Bramalia, the police commissioner, the mayor, everyone came together. Trini Rossi, for example, the U.S. attorney, saying that we are going to be a better city after this, but this is really senseless killing that we've had for the first time, a mass shooting of this magnitude in the Queen City.
Horrible. And if you've ever wondered about your law enforcement in this community, or who is keeping you safe, or who is looking after the laws of the land, you saw all of them on display this afternoon in that news conference. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like it, to have that large of a turnout from all corners of law enforcement in this community.
Federal,
it was
state,
amazing.
Local, sheriff, city.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of city, we have Joe Golombek on the line tonight. Joe, give us your thoughts.
I'm just still shocked and disgusted by this whole thing. When I first heard about it, I thought maybe it was just a random shooting, and then I sat down and I was driving, pulled over, and I took a look at the news feed and found out the catastrophic nature of what was going on, and I was literally sick to my stomach.
I think a lot of people share that sentiment as well. As a common councilman, what is your role here, Joe?
I think our role is to do everything that we can to keep things calm. Hopefully this was just an isolated incident from someone from outside of our community that came in, that's hoping to create a disturbance. And I hope that what happens is that quite the opposite happens, that neighborhoods and people from every walk of life will, come together and say, we're not tolerating this. We are Buffalonians.
That's a very good sentiment and a good message, Joe. We are Buffalonians. I think everybody, when you hear that this person, they believe, came and drove hours to get here and to do this horrible thing in our community, it really makes us, to me, and I thought this from the beginning, it makes us want to pull together in the way that we know we can, and not be divided by this.
But the big question tonight is why? Why did he come to Buffalo? Why did he pick that top supermarket on Buffalo's east side? And what was his motivation for killing? Why?
Well, there is a lot of social media out there, a lot of information that this young man conveyed, and we're not able to report on it yet until it's all confirmed by law enforcement. But they have a very good insight, I think, into what motivated this young man. Joe, I'm sorry, are you still with us?
Yes, I am. I'm here.
Okay. As I said, we saw Reverend Darius Pridgeon earlier there, and do you have a relationship to this community on Jefferson Avenue?
Actually, I do. Friends of mine own a cigar store a block and a half away from Tops, and I'm there somewhat frequently. First thing I did when I heard about this was call a couple of the guys to make sure that my friends were safe. And thank God they were. And I know a couple of other people that live probably a 2-minute walk from that Tops. And, I was very relieved to find out that they were safe. of course, the sad part is if there's 10 people that did not walk away from it, and that's just heartbreaking. You went to work or you went to Tops to go shopping and you never came home. I mean, I'm just sick over it.
Well, let me ask you this. As a member of the Buffalo Common Council, have you been briefed or given any inside information that has not been revealed so far?
Not really. I probably know slightly more than you guys do, but, minimally.
Such as what?
Well, something I couldn't share. At this point, I just want to be more careful and not repeat anything that hasn't been in the media.
And Joe, while we've been talking to you and talking about the fact that you have shopped at that Tops, we're just getting a message into the newsroom from Wegmans saying that all Wegmans stores will be closing tonight at 9 p.m. in order to give our employees an opportunity to process this heartbreaking event with their families. We will reopen all stores at 6 a.m. tomorrow. So Wegmans is closing its grocery stores at 9 o'clock tonight. It's just another example of how this shooting in one corner of our community affects all of us in this community.
Now, we know that Governor Kathy Hochul was not supposed to be in Buffalo this weekend. There's many times she comes home to Buffalo, but she was down, I believe, in the New York City metro area this weekend. But as soon as she heard about the mass shooting, she flew into Buffalo, and she's about to make an appearance. And here's Mayor Brown to introduce her live. You can see her standing to the left of the mayor, right of your screen.
Okay, Alan? Go ahead, Mayor. As you know, there was a horrific mass shooting afternoon, 13 people shot, 10 deceased, 3 with non-life-threatening injuries. As soon as the information came out about the shooting, Governor Hochul from Albany was on the phone with me and other elected officials and law enforcement leaders in the community. I want to thank the governor for her very quick response to this Buffalo. And working from Albany, the governor got here as quickly as she could to render support to the community and to check on the status of the victims' families. I'm now going to turn things over to our governor, Kathy Hochul.
Thank you, Mayor Brown, and to all the elected officials and community leaders, clergy, including and also our district attorney, who has a lot in his hands right now. I want to thank the Buffalo Police Department for their exceptional work in handling this situation. And also, I want to thank the New York State Police, who have been embedded from the very beginning. The state police role is supportive here locally, but also it is a prime role working with the FBI to secure the home of the individual, which is out of this region from the southern tier, and amass as much evidence as is humanly possible in the very near term. It's hard to know what to say. This is my community. I know this community well. I've walked these streets. I know the individuals who live here. It's a wonderful, tight-knit neighborhood. And to see that sense of security shattered by an individual, a white supremacist who has engaged in an act of terrorism and will be prosecuted as such, in a cold-hearted, cruel, calculating way. A military-style execution targeting people who simply want to buy groceries in a neighborhood store. It strikes us in our very hearts to know that there's such evil that lurks out there. Yes, I'm here to console the families in a community that is feeling so much pain right now. But mark my words, we'll be aggressive in our pursuit of anyone who subscribes to the ideals professed by other white supremacists, and how there's a feeding frenzy on social media platforms where hate festers more hate. That has to stop. These outlets must be more vigilant in monitoring social media content, and certainly the fact that this act of barbarism, this execution of innocent human beings, could be live streamed on social media platforms and not taken down within a second, says to me that there is a responsibility out there, and we're going to continue to work on this and make sure that those who provide these platforms have a moral and ethical, and I hope to have a legal responsibility to ensure that such hate cannot populate these sites. Because this is the result when you have individuals who use these platforms and talk to others who share these demented views and support each other and talk about the techniques that they'll engage in and post these ideas and share them with others in the hope that they can all someday rise up in their demented view of the world. That's what white supremacist terrorism is all about. That's what we witnessed here today on the streets of Buffalo, New York. And it has to end right here. And that is our message. We will continue to work at the federal, state, and local level with our community partners to help identify these messages as soon as they arise on social media. That is our best defense right now, as well as the legal system and the prosecution. And it is my sincere hope that this individual, this white supremacist who just perpetrated a hate crime on an innocent community, will spend the rest of his days behind bars. And heaven help him in the next world as well. Yeah, I'm angry. I've seen violence from guns on the Brooklyn subway and now in the streets of Buffalo. It has to stop. It has to stop. On Tuesday in Albany, we had already planned to be announcing a comprehensive gun package to address further loopholes that exist in our laws. We are doing everything we can to ensure that our laws are tight, they're ironclad, to ensure that our law enforcement have the resources they need. That is why I started a gun interdiction task force last January. 9 states, as well as NYPD, have teamed up with us to make sure that we can identify when guns are coming across the border from places like Pennsylvania gun shows and end up in small communities outside Binghamton or in Broome County. We don't know that that is the source of the modifications made to a gun, but we're going to find out. We're going to continue addressing this every single way we can. As an aside, we're also going to be preparing our state for what could be a Supreme Court decision that allows people to carry concealed weapons. We're ready. This is New York. We're here to protect our people. Thank you. Any questions?
Governor, you mentioned that the suspect was from the southern tier. Can you tell us where in the southern tier he is from?
I know that law enforcement is securing the home right now and getting search warrants, so I'm not going to disclose the location at this time, but we know where.
Can you tell us the county?
Broome County.
Broome County.
There have been social media posts from others who are claiming to be involved in this. Any concern that the suspect who is in custody is the only one, and any concern in general about other people trying to take credit for this tragedy?
That is something that always law enforcement has to be aware of in the aftermath. It is not uncommon that there be people who try to take credit or there be copycat situations, but all these leads are being run down and investigated, and there's no confirmation at this time. Anyone law enforcement different?
I think you hit it.
Wegmans closed their doors for the rest of the evening. What's your message to people that just need to go grocery shopping, just need to continue living?
And they will, but let us take this moment to grieve. There's a community out there that has had their hearts ripped open. All of us suffer with them. There's families that are still finding out that their loved one is not coming home to dinner tonight. People can get their groceries tomorrow.
Governor, there were, you talk about the social media concern that you all share.
Yet there were social media concerns for this individual prior to today. It's my understanding he had stuff online and on social media. I mean, do you have concerns that that wasn't flagged?
That's what I want to find out. Exactly. And the social media platforms that profit from their existence need to be responsible for monitoring and having surveillance, knowing that they can be, in a sense, an accomplice to a crime like this. Perhaps not legally, but morally. They've created the platform to allow this hate to be spewed, and others who are like-minded or can be radicalized. People who may not have intended to go down the path, but they read this. It's pervasive. It's among the big lies that are out there. And we know how insidious it is. We've seen the effects. But particularly the act of live streaming this, the fact that that could even be hosted on a platform is absolutely shocking. And we need to find out what happened and how to make sure it doesn't happen again.
But do you think his social media footprint should have been noticed by law enforcement prior to this?
Absolutely, these should be monitored by everyone involved. The platform and law enforcement monitors literally millions of posts in search of information like this, and this is all part of the inquiry.
Was it one weapon or more than one weapon, and were the weapons legally obtained or not? Do we know?
My understanding is that it was a legally obtained weapon, but it was modified with illegal magazines that could have been acquired anywhere. We're going to find out where they came from, but they're actually for sale legally in the state of Pennsylvania. So it's not that hard to make that modification. But it was, as modified, it became illegal.
There were reports that the gun that he used had racial epithets written on it, maybe the bullet. Is there any truth to that?
Yeah, we're not going to comment now.
Yeah, we're not going to comment at this point.
We'll take one more.
Okay, Governor, a lot of people in this community here, predominantly black community here, where this shooting took place, are furious, they're angry, and they're also cynical about justice coming out of this. How can you assure people in this community that this is going to receive the proper attention and the proper justice, because this was a racially motivated, appears to be a racially motivated crime?
I'll simply tell the residents of this community, this is our community as well. We share that pain. These are our brothers and sisters, and we are equally outraged. There is no depth to the outrage I'm feeling right now. It is because it just goes on and on, how I feel right now about what happened to this community. So they have our commitment, and I understand cynicism, but they have the commitment of every single person here who will stop at nothing to ensure that we do everything we can that this individual receives the full force of justice. The laws, our district attorney is laser focused on this, as well as our law enforcement teams from the federal, state, and local working tirelessly to find all the evidence to make sure that this case is successfully prosecuted. That is our commitment to the individuals of this community, and they'll see, ultimately, that'll be the outcome.
John, did the arraignment complete and what were the
Yes.
charges?
Justice is already being done immediately. This individual has been arraigned on murder in the first degree, which is the highest charge, murder charge in New York State. Carries with it a sentence of life without parole, the highest punishment we have in New York State. He was remanded. The judge ordered a forensic examination. A felony hearing will now take place in 5 days, and then the investigation continues. So we have taken the appropriate steps right now to get him behind bars, and that's what we did. That was justice, getting that murder first charge filed immediately, calling a judge up and having him come downtown to city court on a Saturday evening to arraign this individual immediately. Not tomorrow morning, not Monday morning, right now. And therefore, as I said, we got a murder first charge already filed against him. We are now investigating terrorism charges, other murder charges, along with working with our partners in the federal government so that they can perhaps file charges as well. So I assure everyone in this community, justice is being done right now, and justice will be done.
I'll address that.
Hate crime, by the way.
As the FBI,
You say hate crime.
so I'm with the FBI. We are doing a parallel investigation with our local and state partners. We're aggressively investigating this at the federal level as a hate crime and as an instance of racially motivated violent extremism. We will bring all of the resources of the federal government to bear on this case. This is the #1 priority of the Department of Justice, and I can assure the citizens of this community that anything that we can do at the federal level with this case will be done, and justice will be served for the victims.
Just on the issue of, just on the hate crime issue as well, I've already asked our hate crime task force, the New York State Hate Crime Task Force, to be investigating as well. So it is being treated absolutely as a hate crime. And I've been in touch with officials in Washington and the White House on the issue of what we're doing here so aggressively. So I appreciate the FBI's engagement as well.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Governor Kathy Hochul leading the latest news conference just before 8 o'clock tonight, flying in from Albany, saying that the hearts of our community have been ripped out tonight. And she's promising that justice is being served and justice will be served. And they are treating this first-degree murder and a racial hate crime.
And the suspect has already been arraigned, as you heard the DA talking about. Now, the governor had some news there that she said on Tuesday she will be introducing a bill to try to close the loophole in some of the gun laws in the state.
She revealed it tonight. It was supposed to be announced on Tuesday. This gentleman, I don't hate to use that word for the suspect, but anyway, had a gun that was purchased legally, but it was modified in the state of Pennsylvania. When you bring the gun back into New York State, it becomes an illegal weapon.
Right.
The modification.
And that's something that they will be investigating. There's no question about that.
All right, if you're just joining us, there has been a mass shooting in the Queen City tonight. Tell us what we know right now.
Here's
Jay.
what we know right now. It happened at about 2:30, 3 o'clock this afternoon at the Tops on Jefferson Avenue. According to police, 10 people were killed and 3